All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for Tiny Marketing Teams, doing more with less. I'm Johnna, and joining me today is Leonie from Article Writers Australia. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. Today's webinar is being recorded. All attendees are muted to minimize any background noise or interruptions. Obviously, we will be sharing the recording and the slides with you after the webinar today. You'll probably get them on Friday. And then we are going to be doing our Q&A at the end of the session today. So please feel free to be sharing your questions in the Q&A feature that's located up at the top of your screen. And again, we'll do that dedicated session at the end and go through as many as possible. Okay, here is what we've got lined up for today. We're going to start with a quick look at what's become the new norm, what's shifted, what's maybe here to stay. We'll chat about where to actually spend your time, those high impact activities that move the needle. We'll look at using tech to lighten the load, that tech that keeps things running in the background so you can focus on the work that actually matters. We'll cover how you can pull everything together into one simple, practical content strategy. Then we'll talk teamwork, how to protect your focus, how to say no without feeling guilty. And then we'll finish off with a reminder that it's completely fine and absolutely necessary to be taking time for yourself because you ultimately are part of the strategy as well. So before we kick off with all of the content, I'm going to go ahead and do our first poll. One moment, please. Here we go. My tech's kind of slow today. Here we go. What's your biggest daily channel as a solo marketer or as part of a small team? Is it finding the time for strategy and planning? Is it keeping up with tech and AI changes? Is it juggling too many priorities? Or is it that saying no to unrealistic expectations? So go ahead and select one. We'll see where everybody is sitting. Okay, it looks like we got most of the responses. The two that probably I was expecting were the saying no to unrealistic expectations and the juggling too many priorities. So yes, these are things that we're all struggling with. So I'm going to hand it over to Leonie.
Thank you very much. So the inherent challenges involved in being a solo marketing manager or having a tiny team aren't really new. Some companies want to grow, small companies want to grow, and they rely on marketers to help them do that. But they have lower revenues and tighter budgets, limited resources for marketing, but their need for marketing is high. And unfortunately, that often translates into those unreasonably high expectations around what one marketer or a small team can achieve. So there's nothing new about that, but what is new for marketers is just about everything else. The past 5 years have been a wild ride for marketing. If the COVID pandemic wasn't enough turbulence, it was closely followed by the launch of generative AI tools and challenges impacting the global economy. So there are plenty of surveys and reports that have been done and being done attempting to capture the impact of the changes, and the resulting data varies quite a lot. But here are a few statistics that probably summarise the scenario. 66% of marketers globally now use AI in their role. Marketing budgets fell to 7.7% of overall company revenue in 2024, which was down from 11% over the 4 years before the pandemic. And unsurprisingly, 70% of professionals in the media, marketing and creative sectors have experienced burnout in the past 12 months, according to a survey done by Mentally Healthy. So that tells a little bit of a story, and I think we probably all recognise that AI adoption and capability is still in its infancy. So more changes are coming, and they're coming fast. So the next 5 years have the potential to make us feel like we're in the middle of a whirlpool. But it's not all doom and gloom. AI also has huge potential for marketers, and especially for small teams and solo marketers. But I do think that we're going to need 3 things to thrive in the coming years. We're going to need to be agile and adaptable. We're going to have to make keeping up with change a priority, and we're going to have to nurture our personal resilience and prioritise our well-being. So one of the biggest challenges for a solo marketer or a small team is still a very basic one, and it's focus. Getting results requires a strategic approach, and a very easy trap to fall into is spending so much time and effort on implementing random ideas that there's no time to develop strategy or undertake proper planning. It's a bit like the man in the forest story that I'm sure most of you have heard of. For anyone who hasn't, it's the story of the man working hard trying to cut down a tree, and he's labouring very hard because the saw is blunt. And another man says to him, "Why don't you sharpen the saw?" And he replies, "I don't have time to stop to sharpen the saw." So I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of doing that to some degree in every aspect of life. I mean, we delete that newsletter that we don't want 100 times before we go and unsubscribe. But those habits won't serve us well when we're bombarded with more change. And one of the biggest shifts that you might have to make is how you see yourself and your role as a marketer. If you're a solo marketing manager or part of a tiny team, the chances are your role is necessarily a strategic one, even if you're also expected to do most of the implementation. So that means that to do well, you'll need to make time for strategy and planning. You'll need to identify time-saving processes and tools. You'll need to monitor results so that you know what's working, and you'll need to respect your own expertise and also your limitations. And now I'm going to hand over to Johnna for a detailed look at tactics for survival in the small team, big expectation environment.
Okay. So not all impact looks the same. Some of the work that we're doing drives tomorrow's growth, and some of it just keeps our head above the water on a daily basis. And we need both, but it doesn't have to be in equal measure. Most of us spend our day zoomed in. So answering emails, updating slides, posting content. That's what we call the microscope work. It feels productive because it's visible, right? The real growth comes from telescope work. So that's the stuff that doesn't show results today, but what makes everything in life a lot easier 6 months from now. Things like regularly optimizing your campaign, cleansing your data, finally fixing that broken lead journey, right? So for tiny teams, the magic mix isn't 50-50. I think probably a lot of us are doing about 70% microscope work and about 30% telescope work. And that's enough to keep things moving along while still doing a little bit of work to set up for tomorrow. So I'm going to do a quick activity. And so in the chat box, tell us which of the activities I'm going to say, is it microscope or is it telescope? So proofreading content before it goes live. Is that microscope or telescope? Microscope, yes. Mapping the customer journey. Mapping the customer journey. Telescope. Updating website copy or landing pages. Microscope, yes. You get it. Same campaign, just a different lens. The key is to knowing which lens you're using and when it's time to switch between the two. All right, so let's talk about one of my favorite teammates, tech. So most of us are probably already using a fair bit of it just to get through the day. So dashboards to track your performance, automation of your nurture emails, AI to tidy up your content. The trick is to know when to hand over to the machines and where it still needs the human touch. So whenever I bring in something new, I start very small. I identify one pain point and take that one at a time. I look for the tools that actually integrate. They don't just sit on top of your existing tech stack and add complexity, right? So if it doesn't save time, improve accuracy, or increase visibility, I actually pull myself back and I decide to skip it, no matter how shiny it looks, right? And a lot of the AI tools out there now are pretty darn shiny. The things I personally never hand over anything that touches my tone, the creativity, or the empathy, because those are really at the heart of how our marketing connects with people, right? So the rule is simple. If it runs on instinct, keep it human based. If it runs on habit, then I let tech take over. So on that note, I am going to go ahead and do our second poll, which, as you could probably guess, will be around tech. 1 second. Sorry, it's taking me so long. Here we go. Okay, so currently, what is your biggest hurdle after setting up your MarTech? Is it figuring out what results to track? Is it about making your reporting easy and actionable? Is it connecting the tools, all the tools, to see the bigger picture, or turning the data into clear decisions? Okay, it's looking like kind of have an even mix. Yeah, actually, it looks pretty even all across, except for turning your data into clear decisions did get a little bit more. And I would agree that was my choice as well. Okay, so what's working, knowing what's working and without drowning in your data. Okay. Most teams can get paralyzed by it, right? If you're like me, you can see 20 tabs open and you kind of freeze and you don't know exactly where to start. The good news is you really don't need 40 KPIs to prove your value. What you need are four core metrics to tell your story. Those are visibility, engagement, conversions, and consistency. So visibility, engagement, conversions, consistency. So why am I just recommending these four? These four actually cover the entire marketing journey, right? So the visibility, are people seeing it? Engagement, are they interacting with it? Conversion, are they actually taking the action that we want them to? And then consistency, is it something that continues to bring people back regularly? So all four of these kind of act as a chain. Like if visibility rises, but engagement falls, something might be off in your messaging. If your engagement works, but your conversions drop, maybe you don't have an offer that's strong enough. So see how they all connect to each other, kind of like dominoes. And yes, there's much more data behind the scenes that is important, but choosing the metrics that force clarity and action will keep you from getting that analysis paralysis. So on the next slide, I'll show you what a simple one-page dashboard looks like. But before that, let's just talk just a little bit about dashboards. And your first instinct is, I'm not a tech wizard, but you don't need to be one to build one these days. I hear that all the time. I don't have the time to research tools. Our systems don't talk to each other. We don't have a budget for another subscription. And of course, my personal favorite is, we've just always done it this way. Totally fair. But the truth is, manual reporting does feel productive, but it's really busy work just in disguise. So these days, most tools, they let you drag and drop. They don't require any code. Many of them even have templates that'll already kind of will get you started without doing a lot of work. From there, you can tweak, merge, filter your data, so it feels very custom and not just cookie cutter. So it's not just what everybody else is using. Plenty of tools these days are free or freemium, so you can also save time and save money. And honestly, these days, if you can work in Canva, you can easily build a dashboard. It's just about taking that first step and letting the tools do the heavy lifting. So here's a tool that I like to show my clients. It's called DataBox. Now, this is not an endorsement. This is just a tool that I've personally found works for all different sizes of business. DataBox connects over 100 data sources It has a library of marketing dashboard templates, which can save you a lot of time, and even offers to build your first dashboard for free. You just need to tell them what metrics you need. So you don't have to start from scratch. Pick a template or ask them to set one up for you. It stays drag and drop throughout. You don't have to code. You don't need to bring your IT into it. Just connect your tools and go. And from here, you can tweak the visuals, you can filter data, make it fit how you work. And this particular image shows that it connects to pretty much all the tools that we use today. So Google, HubSpot, LinkedIn, MailChimp, just to name a few. But you name it, it will integrate with most of the core tools that we work with. And then once it's live, it updates automatically and sends you reports automatically as well. No spreadsheets, no extra logins, no chasing data, just one screen that is easy access and really easy to send to a stakeholder, for example, and it'll show you what's working. Okay, so we all know that tech can be the answer, but how do you get your leadership, especially if they're tight-fisted, how do you get them on board with investing in more technology? So when you're pitching this to the powers that be, just keep it really simple. Show them where your time is wasted. Usually it's on that repetitive stuff and how much time you could save. Then always link it back to the business goals because it's going to be somebody in leadership or an executive or a finance person making the decision to give you money. And they love when they can see that it's tied to a business goal. So bring your backup stories, tell them about other small teams who've saved, for example, 10 hours a month or significantly boosted their conversions. Frame that tech as an extra team member, and that usually will help make work more efficient. And it's not just seen then as an additional cost. So again, make your case clear and more compelling, especially when you're presenting it to leadership that are a bit tight with finances and resources. And this slide we're not going to go through in great detail, but we thought it would be helpful to share some AI-powered integrations that plug right into the marketing tools that a lot of us already use. Again, not endorsements, but firsthand input from colleagues, clients that are using these tools effectively. Now, we know I guess it's fair to say where the time suck usually happens. Setting up multi-channel campaigns, multi-platform social media scheduling, editing video content. So you're getting kind of the idea. So this list of tools plugs in to your existing stack and can help eliminate a lot of that repetitive manual work. So you can see that we've selected Salesforce as a CRM, Hootsuite. A lot of us are using Canva these days, Monday, HubSpot, Marketo. A lot of these suggested AI tools plug right into the bigger, obvious ones. So again, the real win here is cutting back those tedious tasks that are slowing you down, freeing you up to focus on strategy and the work that's going to continue to move the needle. And real quickly, here's a case study that tells exactly that same story. It's an active campaign case study. It's a great example of how automation can seriously free up your time. An organization called Communicate used it to automate all of their onboarding and all of their nurture emails, so their marketing team didn't get stuck in chasing every single lead manually. So their system sends personalized content based on what the actors are doing, which means obviously better engagement, more conversions without doing a lot more of the work manually. So the bottom line, using Active Campaign, they were able to save 30 hours a month and saw over 1.5 times more conversions. So that's kind of exciting that one tool could do that kind of work. Okay, I'm going to launch our last poll before we go into content strategy, which Leonie will walk us through. So here we go. All right, what best describes your current content strategy? Is it not documented? It's a strategy on the run at the moment kind of situation? Is it documented and doable? Resources permitting, documented but very outdated, or documented but gets ignored or overruled from stakeholders either above or just other departments. Okay. Okay, so it's a neck and neck race for not documented and documented and doable. All right. Thanks, guys, for doing that. Now I'm going to turn it over to Leonie.
Thank you, Johnna. So when you're working solo or with a tiny team, the last thing that you want is a 20-page strategy document that you'll rarely look at. A one-page strategy forces you to have clarity. It's also easier to get everyone on the same page when there is only one page. So a single-page strategy gives you focus so that you can only create content that serves clear business goals. Agility, because you can adjust quickly when priorities shift, and visibility, because you can share it with stakeholders without needing to explain a lot of detail. So what to include on that one page? Goals. What business outcomes are you supporting? For example, are you generating qualified leads, increasing demo bookings, improving client retention? Second one, audience. Who are you creating the content for? Be specific. Who are they and what do they care about right now? Key messages. What do you want to communicate consistently to your audience? Identify some content pillars, 3 to 5 main themes that you'll create content around. Primary channels. Where will you publish or promote and what's realistic given your capacity? Success metrics. How will you measure the impact? Think about things like engagement, traffic quality, or conversions, not just volumes. And your next steps and your priorities. What are the first 3 things that you'll bring to life? So how to go about it? Start with what you already know, past content performance, audience feedback, and business priorities. If you've just started in your role and those things are unclear, then you'll need some discussions with appropriate colleagues to establish the business goals. And you might need to conduct a bit of a content audit or a broader audit to identify what, if anything, was being done before your arrival. So jot your notes under those headings and then refine them into short, actionable statements. Don't overthink it. If you've previously worked in a large corporate environment, it's likely the development of a content strategy was a complex, drawn-out affair that took months and cost a small fortune. But the solo or small team is a very different place, and what you need is something simple to get started. So think of this as your clarity sheet. It's not a document that needs to be shopped around for approval. It's a simple guide that will help you keep your efforts on track. And now on to how to get the work done, whether it's just you or a tiny team, because if it's not already impossible to do everything yourself, it's likely to become impossible when you try to scale up your efforts. So the reality is that no one can be great at everything. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll have to convince the boss to hire additional team members if the business isn't ready to do that. Building a small ecosystem of reliable external partners, from writers and videographers to strategists and designers, can make your tiny marketing team a powerhouse. As you start to scale up activity, you might only need a limited amount of help for particular projects. So, for example, you might want to create some video content, but you don't have the equipment, skills, or the confidence to create it in-house. Or you might need a high-quality white paper to support a particular campaign, but writing something that detailed just isn't realistic alongside your day-to-day workload. Or you might feel that you'd save valuable time and bandwidth if you collaborated with an external strategist to develop a quarterly marketing plan or a 6-month content plan. If budget is very limited, start small and think longer term. Identify the projects that most need specialist input or would have the biggest impact if they're done really well. But look at partners that you could work with again and again in the future, rather than someone who's available for a one-off project. Try to anticipate some of these needs in advance, make some early connections, have some introductory calls, obtain rate schedules, and this will help you to avoid last-minute rushes. Because when you request services on short notice, it often results in higher quotes or people being unavailable for your project deadlines. And a final tip, Just never feel bad about needing external help or thinking that someone could do a particular task better than you might do it. No person is an expert at everything. Which leads me to our next topic, respecting your own expertise. So this is the topic that both Johnna and I are very keen to talk about because it's just really, really important. Disrespect of marketing expertise is something that we've both observed from different perspectives. Johnna has experienced this personally from within marketing teams, and my observations are those of an outsider looking in because I've spoken with many stressed and disillusioned marketing managers over the years. So I'm going to briefly share my observations and thoughts, and then Johnna is going to get into the detail of the ways that you might deal with situations that arise in this context. So it's funny how many people seem to think they're experts on marketing, but actually it's often not that they think they're experts, it's that they don't recognise marketing as an area of special expertise or as a skill that requires expertise. And that can lead them to think that they know just as much about marketing as you do. They might even think that they know more by virtue of being older than you or being well educated in some other field or just by virtue of being a business owner or a CEO. And sometimes the lack of respect for a marketer comes more in the form of how much you're expected to achieve single-handedly or with limited resources. You're seen as merely a day-to-day implementer rather than someone with expertise who can develop a long-term strategic approach. These situations can be stressful and completely demoralising. If you're stuck in one right now, you'd be far from alone. So I've seen the lack of respect for marketing expertise play out so many times in different ways. It frequently results in the marketing managers moving on because they're unable to make any progress with the company's marketing or simply because they don't feel valued personally. Sometimes there's an opportunity to demonstrate your value and educate the people you work with and develop a great collaboration that's a win for everybody. But other times you could find yourself in a no-win situation. So without naming names, I'm going to share 3 examples I've seen that all resulted in the marketing manager leaving. So the first was a marketing manager we worked with who would prepare lovely detailed briefs for us for thought leadership content. We'd write the content, she'd be delighted with it, and then her CEO would rewrite it because he thought it didn't talk enough about their services. And by the time he'd finished with the articles, they were unrecognisable and they were no longer about the topic at all. So the marketing manager made several diplomatic attempts to get him to understand what she was trying to achieve, but he just didn't get it. And so one day she told us that she would be taking a few weeks off, and we just knew she was never coming back. So another situation I've seen more than once is where a small business CEO has a friend or relative involved in marketing and he keeps asking them to critique his marketing manager's approach. So that wears thin pretty quickly. One that sticks in my mind was a situation where the marketing manager left after just a few weeks because the CEO kept asking someone external to critique her work and she didn't know who it was. After she left, the CEO introduced us to that person, suggesting that she would be taking over the marketing. Well, it turned out that it was his mother, and she openly admitted that she knew nothing about marketing and she didn't know what she was expected to do. So thank goodness we actually never heard from them again. But hands down, the wildest scenario that I have seen was a marketing manager who was tasked with creating thought leadership content based on the expertise of 2 company executives. But the 2 executives hated each other and they both hated the marketing manager and they thought marketing was a load of BS. He'd been there for about 2 months when he engaged us for the writing. Everything we wrote disappeared into a cycle of vicious amendments, with the 2 warring executives deleting each other's changes and arguing over what the focus of the article should be. They'd also leave quite nasty comments in the documents for the marketing manager and for us as well. So just before he left, the marketing manager called me to apologise for their behaviour. And it turns out that he'd written the first couple of articles himself and they'd torn him to shreds and told him he was incompetent. He wondered if perhaps it was the articles, because even though he thought he had good writing skills, he wasn't a professional writer. And so he figured if it was just his writing, then engaging us would solve the problem. It didn't. So he realised that that was a battle he was never going to win, and he moved on just a couple of weeks later. So based on what I've seen marketing managers go through over the years, my tips would be respect your own expertise. If it's being disrespected, consider the cause of the issue and decide if it's a winnable battle. And if you're up for trying to win it, then make a plan. If you're not, don't waste time. Start looking for a better environment. And the second is clear communication is key. There's being diplomatic, and there's being so diplomatic that you're just dropping a hint that nobody's going to pick up. Some people don't take hints, and others hear just a suggestion that they can follow if they want to later. So Johnna has some even better tips because she has dealt personally with this issue during her career. So I will now hand over to Johnna.
Yes, I've experienced, and our poor friend Nick looks like he's experienced all of those as well. So I'm hoping that we're getting a lot of nods on the other side. This is something that we all have experienced. People often mistake marketing as a support function. And like Leonie said, they don't always respect it as a specialized skill. Everyone seems to be a marketer. I don't oftentimes meet people that everybody thinks that they're an accountant or everyone thinks that they're a lawyer, but for some reason, marketing seems to be one of those roles where everybody seems to think they know how to do it. So if you're in a situation where you're being told what to do instead of being asked, or your time's not being respected, remember boundaries really matter. So I think one of probably the most complicated one is if you're reporting to a C-level executive, things can get a little bit more tricky. Instead of being asked what you needed, you're often just told what to do. And when that happens, your expertise is completely sidelined. So you need to be building up respect. So to build respect, regardless of who your stakeholder is, use your data to show impact. Be honest about what's achievable and show off by translating the marketing data into business outcomes. Speak their language, but show that you talk the talk, you walk the walk when you show it in their formats that they respond to. One of the things that's worked well with me is communicating SLAs regularly to keep everyone on the same page. You get a lot of those requests, and we'll go through this next, is all of those last minute requests that people don't understand how much time it takes to get things done. So having those SLAs and setting the expectation up front has helped me on the back end, because it gives me the opportunity to say, no, I very clearly communicated that it takes this much time to do that nature of a project. Don't forget to educate along the way. Helping them understand the why behind your process can be really helpful as well. Normalize pushing back when you get requests that aren't realistic, and then turn those knowledge gaps into learning moments. So maybe if they understand a little bit more clearly of everything that needs to happen, maybe with time, they'll start showing a little bit more respect and respecting your time. After your launches, make sure that you take time to debrief. Talk about what worked, what didn't, and why. A lot of my sales teams have always been, they didn't see the fruit of their labor. So if they're giving me their time to do a case study or bring me into a client meeting, they want to know that it's going to have an impact and help them sell later. So always connect those two dots. So those are just a few suggestions of how you can keep earning respect and then raising the bar for yourself and for your team. Here is the hard one. And again, I don't know if everyone on our webinar today was like me early in my career, but when you're in the marketing department, yes becomes a habit. So before saying yes, do a quick gut check. Is it helping you with your main goals for the week? Do you actually have the space to fit it in? Or is it something that can realistically be done better on the next sprint? And then is it even your job, or is it something else that someone else could take? I've found a lot of things come back on marketing because they don't sit pretty and nicely into somebody else's role. So that's not unusual. And so practicing your no can really come in handy here. If you do need to say no, always keep it positive. Acknowledge the request. Make sure that they know that they're being heard, but give them a bit of context instead of a list of excuses. That context will help them know that you really have heard what they said, but here is what your expertise will lead you to recommend. Suggest an alternative or suggest a later date. Again, keep it upbeat. It's about priorities. It's not a personal thing. It's not rejecting anyone. So if you do need some ready-made lines, here are a few that I've leaned on. That's a great idea. Let's revisit it after our holiday campaign. I'd love to help, but I'm at capacity this week. Maybe we set up a meeting next week. With this, or this might sit better with product development, for example. Would you like me to connect you with somebody? And sure, we can do that, but I'd have to push back on something else, fill in the blank, which right now is what I've been told is a priority. So again, get your scripting right, and then with practice, it starts coming naturally. Here are some other examples. Again, not going to go through all of these, but I wanted to highlight a few that always get me as a marketing person. So, can you jump into this meeting? And you just got invited just in case marketing comes up, but oftentimes it's fairly relevant. And I actually even started very comfortably declining meetings when they didn't have a clear agenda or a description to showcase what the meeting was about. And oftentimes you'll see that blank description in a meeting request, and it's okay. Just say no. And if they ask why, then you can pose the question. I wasn't clear on what marketing's role was in that meeting. Instead of automatically saying yes, you can say, I might skip this one so I can make sure the campaign launches on time. Just tag me or reach out to me if comms comes up in the meeting. The boss's pet project. So leadership comes in hot with a new detour, a new idea that they had in their dreams last night, and you're still working on last week's priorities. So try something like that's an exciting idea. Now, to do it properly, we'll need to plan it into the next cycle so it gets the time and focus that it deserves. Or if you need to be a little bit firmer, you can say, love the enthusiasm. Right now, we're focused on, again, the holiday campaign, but let's revisit it once those milestones are hit. Because again, that boss knows that you have to hit those milestones. It's really, and there's some other examples here, but it's really all about protecting your time and saying no with confidence, yet still sounding like a team player. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Leonie, as we go through taking the time to focus on yourself.
Okay. So it's taken me a lifetime to learn this lesson, and actually I think it's still a bit of a work in progress. But I'm going to say this for anyone who's overloaded or working in a toxic environment. Many of us are brought up learning that we should be polite and diplomatic. We're encouraged not to be selfish in putting our own needs ahead of others, and that we shouldn't complain too much. Unfortunately, that can lead into the trap of not speaking up when we should, saying yes when we should say no, and continuing to work in toxic environments or tolerate toxic people longer than we should. So life can be a bit like a marketing job. Sometimes we're so busy doing everything that we don't have time to step back, take a breath, and look at our own bigger picture. Nobody else is going to consider your well-being as well as you can consider your own. Prioritising your own well-being and setting boundaries isn't the same as being selfish and rude. You do need to recognise what's good for you and what isn't. Sometimes the first step to doing that is giving yourself enough space to gather your thoughts and gain clarity. So next time you're planning your time, put yourself and your well-being into the equation and set aside some time out. Now, how to put what we've learned into action. Schedule 3 30-minute blocks for telescope time. That gives you some focused, uninterrupted work on key tasks. Block off those 3 sessions in your calendar, and when the time arrives, turn off notifications and work on a priority task uninterrupted. 2, create a one-page content strategy. This helps to keep everyone aligned and provide a clear reference point for you to evaluate project ideas against your goals. And we'll be providing you with a templated tracker to fill out your content goals, target audience, topics, publishing calendar, and performance metrics all in one easy-to-share document. And the third one is to book yourself some me time. Make this a non-negotiable with yourself. You're in a demanding role and you need to be able to recharge your batteries. Block off time for something that helps you to unwind and don't feel the slightest bit guilty about doing that. And back to Johnna for the Q&A.
I wanted to add in something along that me time, and it isn't fully me time, but we would have walking meetings. So I know if you're like me, I sat at my desk for very long hours, and sometimes I would just take my meetings on the road and we would get out, we'd get some fresh air, we'd still be productive, but it gave me what I needed, which was just that little break from my everyday sitting in front of a computer screen. So there's ways of getting creative about being flexible with how you get work done and take care of yourself as well. But thank you, Leonie. Okay, so we're going to move into Q&A. Nick, I did see your question on there. It was when Leonie was going over content strategy. Curious on content pillars, what happens when this goes rogue? And that is not uncommon. Leonie, I'll just quickly give my marketing feedback, and then you can do yours as well if you don't mind. Nick, one of the items that we're going to be sending out to everybody is a content strategy document. It's one document. It's an Excel document with multiple tabs. And in those tabs, marketing strategy, there's a tab, there's an audience strategy, there's a social scheduler for 3 different platforms, there's messaging key components, and it's all in one document. So if you're sitting with somebody and you're going through your audience and you're talking about personas, the next tab over is your content pillar. So if they start making suggestions like, well, this particular audience likes this, you can just click over to the content pillars tab and show them this is what our key messaging is. Does it fit into those? And then boom, if it doesn't, you just keep the conversation going. So that's a tool that we'll be giving you guys next week, and we hope that it's helpful. Leonie, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty spot on. And I think if it goes further, then you just have to keep trying to bring them back. If people are trying to send things off topic, you just have to keep trying to bring them back again. And if you can't do that, that's when you come into that situation of deciding whether you're in a winnable battle or not.
Yeah. I would always get time if sales is your primary stakeholder, and it usually is as a marketing person, just schedule some time with your sales team on their regular meetings and present it, and actually do that very basic, here's your opportunity to ask any questions. Does all of this make sense to everybody? Gather any input. And then you'll always be able to refer back to it once you can refer back to and say, hey, we went over this. This is what we've all decided as a team. So we'll always keep going back to these. So just another opportunity to reinforce it once it's been socialized with everybody and you've gotten their leadership on board. Okay. Let's see. All right, here's another question. I feel like marketing is always left out of bigger business decisions. How can I get invited earlier? Yep. Yes. Again, I think I'd probably just tell you, always bring value, not volume. Early in my career, I know I would come with my status of all the projects that we were working on, and their eyes would roll in the back of their head. So it's not about, look at all the things that I'm working on. Come in with a quick insight from a campaign that they've worked with you on, or a piece of customer feedback that ties to revenue, service, or retention. And once leaders begin to see that marketing has business intelligence and not just creative ideas, you might start seeing more of those calendar invites, because they will see that as more valuable than just kind of vomiting what you're working on, right? Let's see. How do we stop people from treating marketing like a make it pretty department? I think we've probably all heard something similar about coloring or making it pretty. So yes, I completely understand. And I think it kind of goes back to that last question where educate people through evidence, not through emotion. So show how marketing is such a key component to revenue pipeline, customer retention. When somebody just flippantly just says, oh, just go post this, explain how it fits or doesn't. in your strategy. So over time, with that consistency and that education element, it does eventually turn into respect. And fingers crossed, very fewer of those last minute can you just do it requests. Let's see, Nick. I've experienced people try and socialize content via their own channel on LinkedIn when they do not get company approval to proceed on content. I would ask, do you have social media guidelines in place? If you have, it might be the opportunity to go and remind everybody that they do need to run things through marketing or through PR, particularly if it's not something that's been repurposed from something that you've published. It's kind of a double-edged sword because you do want people to be sharing the content that marketing has been putting into the market. They become your army and socialize it at and amplify it. But if they're doing it on their own and going rogue, that's where you probably need to bring in leadership to make sure that they coach their employees that that is not an acceptable practice. Maybe even turn it into a learning opportunity. I had LinkedIn come in and coach my sales teams on how to use Sales Navigator and then I came in and walked them through how do you repurpose marketing's content. And a lot of that stuff was done by me, put into a portal. They went, they grabbed it, and they posted it. So sometimes you do have to do a little bit of the work, but at least you know what's going out in market came from the strategy that marketing is putting into the market. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Okay. And then one more. And there is a softness to some of the stuff that we talked about today. So this one is I struggle to say no without feeling like I'm letting the team down. Any advice? Can reframe it. You're not saying no. You're just saying yes to the priorities that are actually delivering results. So use your data, use your strategy pages backup. But for example, if we add this, we'll need to pause X or Y and then make them part of the decision. Which should we choose? It's still assertive. It's setting expectations, but it's still collaborative. So there is a way to meet in the middle and not be the bad guy. And yes, I know a lot of marketing people are yes people, but there are ways to get around that. All right, so that looks like the last one that's come in. Leonie, how about I hand it back to you to wrap us up?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just before we go, I'd just like to share some information with you about our services. Johnna and I both operate independently and in collaboration. So should you have a need, you can access our services either in combination or separately. My team can assist you with anything writing related, from planning and content audits to writing interview-based thought leadership content and marketing case studies. And Johnna can assist with strategy development, campaigns, events, and more. And for anyone who's attended today, I have an offer. If you book in a new project with us before 19 December this year, you will get a 25% discount. So that's regardless of the size of the project, and it doesn't have to be something that you need done this year. It could be applied to something that you have planned for early next year. So if you'd like to take me up on that, just book in a call with me sometime between now and 19 December, and we can have a chat about what you have in mind. And that is a wrap. Thank you all for coming along. Please feel free to reach out to either or both of us for a chat, and have a wonderful week.
Thanks, everybody.